Hey everyone, this is Mike, and as promised, our Shiva Savage Optimized Strategies video. Now, I promised this video quite a while ago, but it took some time for us to finally get a clear of it with our new strategies, because we just kept adjusting things every now and then. But then finally we decided on some stuff that we were going to be doing, which is this pull that you're seeing right here. Now, it's not a clean pull by any means. I think we have like 2 people die at some point. But basically, at least you can still see all of our strategies. Now, I did have to take this one from Twitch, because I kind of was not recording when we ended up clearing, because we were supposed to stop for the night, but we decided to do one last pull before we ended up finishing the night, and that ended up being our clear. If we do end up getting a clean run sometime next week, because we do still want to get a clean run of this fight, I'll definitely upload that one as well this time around, or well, that time around without commentary, so you can just enjoy the fight for what it is without having to listen to me ramble about stuff over it. Now, the reason why we do a very long pull timer in the beginning is so that our dancer can do his standard step pre-pull and then start with technical immediately, because pretty much all of us are going to be doing a very early opener. I do first GCD, no mercy. Our ninja also does first GCD trick, same with chain, and thus our dancer is going to be doing that as well with his technical step. It's basically so that we can get some extra stuff in, because if I do no mercy first GCD, then I'm going to be able to get an extra usage right before Shiva vanishes for the ad phase. Same thing goes for a couple of other people here as well, like our paladin does something weird with fight or flight as well. Now, for Diamond Frost, we're going to be doing full uptime for this one. The only ones that get knocked back are our healers in the back, but outside of that, everyone's pretty much going to be using arm's length here. We created this nice safe spot over here in the front. I believe this strategy is taken from Move. I'm not 100% sure, but I do think that they were the ones that came up with this one, and I do like this one quite a lot. The only downside for me personally is this mechanic right here, the driving frost slash biting frost. If it's biting frost, then our healers need to run towards the back because of the way how we place our ice puddle AoEs that are on the DPS. But if we were to change that a little bit, it would be a lot easier for the healers as well. Gonna be pulling it a little bit towards north here so that our healers can just stay in the back and not have to care. Now, I'm gonna be wiggling my camera here. This is a little trick that you can do if you are a melee DPS. You can do this as a caster as well, but as a caster it's a lot harder. And that basically makes it so that you can cheese any look away mechanic. As for the Tank Buster, we ended up using Hallowed Ground because we don't need to use Hallowed Ground really that early into the second phase of the fight. So that's why we're going to be using that, meaning that our healers don't have to heal the paladin, so that they can just keep all of their DPS actions. As for Light Rampant, we use Ayatori's strat. This strat is just great. Not only is it pretty easy to execute, even if you want to just play it completely safe, I think this one is easier than the Ilias strat that we've been using so far. The only thing that is different is that the people with the chains need to think a little bit about where they are going, but there's only really 3 different permutations, so it's not all that bad. If you want to learn a really good Light Rampant strat, use Ayatori. I think it's one of the better ones out there. Now, for the last mirror mechanic, this is of course going to be the other way around than the previous one. Since we had sidekick first, we're gonna have X-kick this time around. So with X-kick we just keep Shiva in the middle. If we end up having sidekick, then I will pull her towards either the north or the northeast mirror, so that our melees can just keep full uptime on that, and then we don't really have to care about what mechanic is going to be happening, because we will have that full uptime. As for the ad phase does not count towards the logs, so you don't really have to care about your DPS there. As long as you just kill all of the ads before they go into the middle, you don't really have to care too much about this one. So just play this one safe, and then, well, just clear all of the ads, so to speak. So nothing too special about this one, just make sure that you silence and stun the ads that are necessary, and make sure that you of course take all of the tethers as well. We don't really have a specific strat for this, because as I said, this does not count for your logs. I do think it's not really that great of a decision from like the person behind FFXIV. I don't really like it. Yes, the ad phase is a little bit scuffed, because depending on like what team composition you are running, for example, since we have double caster here, or triple caster if you count the healer as well, then they are going to be cancelling their casts and such, because of course, like for example, you're just running around chasing the ads, and then depending on what group composition you have, sometimes the ads could take a while to die and you get a lot of GCDs in. Sometimes the ads just die in a few hits, like for example here with the Black Mage, if he hits one of the electrics with a foul, they're pretty much just going to be vanishing anyway. So I'm not 100% sure if I like the decision of excluding the ad phase out of the log runs, or like just out of the logs in general on FF logs. But it is what it is. Basically makes it so that even if you are log running, you don't have to care about anything here that you're doing. A healer can just spam their heals. You can also totally use this opportunity to pool resources as well. For example, I start with 2 cartridges as well as my Bloodfest ready. Scholar can also save all of their energy drains and such, like all of their Aetherflow stacks that they can pull towards the next phase as well. For example, with Astrologian, they can pull a card and still have draw ready, so they can play an extra card in the reopener for Shiva, because when she comes back after this little cutscene, you are going to be having a reopener with potions, with all of the raid buffs and that kind of stuff. So that means that this reopener is going to be pretty strong. Now, when it comes down to our second phase, we actually didn't really change all that much. We did knockback mirrors for uptime, but we already were doing that for our weekly clears as well. And then I think the biggest change really comes for the tanks, at least in the Icelit Dragon song, as well as for all of the melees when it comes down to the final mechanic as well. Right before we kill it. Well, I say final mechanic because technically Worm's Lament 2 is the final mechanic, but we aren't really going to be seeing that all that much. And we definitely shouldn't see it if we get a clean run, because, like, for example, in this run, we have our Scholar die in phase 1, and then I believe our Dancer also gets yeeted off during the ice phase, right before the final mechanic. But we technically want to be killing her around that time, so we don't even see the final set of Akmorns. Now, a second reason why we actually used our Hallowed Ground in the first phase instead of me using Superbolite is because I use Superbolite on this Morn Afa. If I were to use Superbolite on the Tank Buster in phase 1, then it wouldn't be up for this Morn Afa, so it's really important that you know that. When it comes down to these mirrors, basically the same thing that we've always been doing. Small little optimization that you can do if you're, for example, a Black Mage or a caster that does not like to move all that much, is you can move from well, you can always move diagonally, basically. So depending on how you have to move, you can actually just do this one immediately. Either you have to wait for the first one to go off and then immediately move in, or you have to wait for the first 2 to go off and then move in. It depends on the pattern. But if you are a caster that does not like to move all that much, it is a little optimization that you can do right there as well, to make it so that you have to lose less instant casts. I made a small mistake here, and that is that I used both of my Rev Divides. I should have just saved one and then run in for the head, because now I am basically going to be clipping my GCD for about half a second or something like that, whereas if I were to save my Rev Divide, then I wouldn't. On the other hand, it also means that my Rev Divide would not have been under No Mercy, so I'm not 100% sure what is the best. Usually keeping your GCD rolling is the best option, because that way you can also get used to how it feels later down the line in the fight as well, when it comes down to timing your Surecast, for example, for the knockback mirrors, because that is a thing. Of course, here we have ice floor, so just stand still and then dodge accordingly. When it comes down to how we handle this Tank Buster, I'm just going to be using my cooldowns for it. I'm going to be using Rampart, what's it called again, Camouflage, as well as my Heart of Stone, and then I'm also going to be getting some help from the healer as well as my co-tank, as my healer is going to be giving me a shield and my co-tank is going to be giving me an intervention. Intervention is right there, and I feel like my healer forgot the shield. Yeah, my healer forgot the shield, meaning that I drop really low here, but that means that I should be getting the shield sometime soon. I don't know why, sometimes she gives it to me, sometimes she doesn't, but as long as you survive, it doesn't really matter all that much. Just makes it a little bit safer in case I forget to use one of my cooldowns, or my paladin doesn't intervention, or my healer doesn't give the shield. There's basically a lot of different mitigation coming in. Now, the main reason why I don't use my stronger cooldowns, like for example my 30%, is because I'm going to be using that here. So we're going to be using Hallowed Ground here as well, by the way. So this makes it actually really easy on the healers. I'm going to be using my Heart of Light, and I believe we also have Divine Veil here, but I just stand inside of the middle. So of course use your arm's length here just in time when she turns around for the first auto attack, so that you don't get knocked off. But as you can see, I stand in the middle, and then our paladin takes both of the heavy hits, the ones that are close to the mirrors, with Hallowed Ground, so you don't even have to heal him at all. This is something that our healers wanted to see, if Hallowed Ground was back up here, because this basically just made it so much easier on our healers, because otherwise either me or the paladin would almost die if you were to just use our normal cooldowns, so it usually got pretty tight. Now for this one, again, I am wiggling my camera like madman, because this means I can get full uptime without having to care about the gaze mechanic. So that is why I do that. You know, maybe if people want to see like an extra like a mini guide on something on how to do this, then I'll make that as well if people want to know that. Just let me know in the comments down below. But yeah, basically the reason why we used Hallowed Ground earlier is basically just to save our healers some GCDs when it comes down to healing. And of course, a lot of healer DPS comes down to your party. Like, if you want your healers to do damage, everybody needs to help out with the mitigation. When it comes down to helping your tanks mitigate more with that intervention, with that shield and that kind of stuff. As well as how it comes down to like other stuff like reprisal and such. To basically just help them out a little bit. Now, I made a mistake here because the boss was positioned towards B instead of towards A. So that's why I positioned at the back. And I was also streaming at this time. So I was probably reading chat at this point or something like that, which is why I wasn't really paying too much attention. Kind of my mistake right there. Now, when it comes down to Icelit Dragon Song, this is one of the things that took us quite a long time to try out, mainly because of my greediness being the problem here. And that is that our tanks are not going to be frozen. The normal way how you handle this is you let your tanks be frozen so that they can stand in the middle so that your chains with the healers don't break. What you can do, however, is you can use your gap closer, because knockback prevention does not work here. As you can see, my arm's length is up, but it's not going to be working. So what I have to do instead is I have to time my rough divide to jump back into the middle before the chains break. And you'll see that happening right after the Draconic Strike goes off. Now, in order to do this, I need to stop pressing GCDs here, because if I keep pressing my GCDs, then actually the GCD animation is going to be too long, and I actually won't be able to use my off GCD in time, because as you know, for every GCD that you can use 2 off GCDs, but there's always a slight delay in between all of them because of animation. And thus, if I were to press that GCD and get the animation of the GCD rolling, then I wouldn't be able to time my rough divide in time in order to get back to the boss, and then the chains would break. And that is actually what killed us most of the time. Ever since I stopped greeding that extra GCD, we kind of stopped wiping to that as well. When it comes down to our Paladin, we do let him freeze, but that is because he has a very high ping, and because of that it would sometimes just not work, and it would get rubber banding and that kind of stuff, which is really unfortunate, but unfortunately nothing that we can do about it. For the ice floor, as you can see, our dancer got yeeted off the arena because he was mispositioned, but all of our melees are going to be standing relatively close to the boss, so that we basically bait our AoE, the floor gets frozen, and then we use our gap closer to get back to the boss, and then basically keep pretty much full uptime. We just lose about half a GCD, maybe 1 GCD here. Our ninja does it a little bit different because he has Sukuchi. Sukuchi is way better for this. But when it comes down to our tanks, for example, because we only have 1 melee, we just stand away from the boss a little bit, use our gap closer, and then we don't have to care about that mechanic really, and can keep pretty much full uptime, because otherwise we lose like 2 or 3 GCDs, something like that. But that is Shiva Savage. Those are our optimized strategies that we use. Yeah, if you have any more questions about them, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below if you want to know, for example, how the gaze mechanic works or something like that. I'll definitely make a follow-up video for that. But that's pretty much going to be it for me. So if we do end up getting a clean run of this fight, then I'll be sure to upload that one as well, just without commentary, so you can just look at the fight yourself and enjoy it like that. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me. I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my Patreons for supporting me, and I'll see you in the next one.